What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you an overview of Patch 6 for Baldur's Gate 3's Early Access period, which just went live yesterday. This is something that is currently available. If you own the Early Access, you can in fact go download the patch if you haven't, and jump right into it. That said, this patch was gigantic. So this was about a 36 gigabyte patch, or at least for me it was 36 gigs, and it brings quite a few substantial changes. Truthfully, most of the actual size of the patch itself went into all of these graphical changes that were made across the game. But there are two very big things I want to talk about first. First up, we have the new Sorcerer class, and new to the Early Access, obviously not new to 5th edition D&D or D&D in general. The Sorcerer has been added to the Early Access period for BG3. It comes with two subclasses, Wild Mage, as well as the Draconic Bloodline variant. Sorcerers draw their power from their ancestry, basically, and it manifests in them in some way. Draconic kind of being the iconic Sorcerer, really. And in addition to that, they actually added some unique visuals specifically for the Draconic Bloodline Sorcerer, which will allow them to customize scales and stuff that you can see, which you can customize beyond the scope of what your dragon ancestor's color was, because red dragons versus gold dragons, etc. is a whole thing in D&D. But you can customize the scales. They actually added some spells into the game as well to go along with the Sorcerer update. But this is just an overview, so we are not diving too deep into the Sorcerer class. I just wanted to obviously call out that it had been added. Next up, Grymforge is a new area added to the Underdark section available in the Early Access period that has a bunch of quests that lead you into Grymforge. By itself, it is basically a fortress underground in the Underdark that, according to the developers, has added at least several hours of content to the Early Access period. And overall, it looks pretty interesting. Now, the other pretty large thing I want to mention here is the graphical changes that were brought with this update, because they cast a pretty wide net with that, and basically, most of the game has been affected in some way to make the art style simultaneously more distinct as well as a bit darker. So you're going to see your characters actually look wounded and get hurt now, as well as a variety of other changes that are kind of hard to encapsulate in an overview video like this. But I might be streaming this live soon and we might talk about that more then. But the big thing here is that the visual look of the game has changed a fair bit. I mean, it's still BG3, so don't expect anything like completely revolutionary, but they did make some tweaks to the art direction that definitely make it seem a little darker. And then another big thing I wanted to mention was that they added weapon actions. These are basically like specific attacks that you can make with certain types of weapons, ranged or melee weapons. This is purely to just add some variety to the combat for melee or physical attackers, and basically involves your character attacking in a certain way to achieve an effect. So similar to skills, but it's more about the weapon you're wielding than anything else. And then last but not least, I wanted to highlight the sheer volume of fixes and changes that came with this patch, because there's just too many to list, frankly. There's just tons of them. I'll try to post a link to the actual patch notes just so you guys can read them if you want, but without exaggerating at all, easily probably a couple hundred bug fixes in this one patch. And that's not even including all the tweaks and changes they made to certain gameplay elements to just make things a bit more interesting in general. So seriously, a pretty massive patch that honestly changed the feel of the game quite a bit. But there you go, guys, just kind of a quick overview of some of the things that were brought with patch 6. I'm hoping I'll get a chance to dive into some of these subjects a little more in depth on an individual basis, but for this video, I just kind of wanted to gather up the major changes that patch 6 brought and kind of share that news with everybody, so here we are. So if you liked the video, like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz, but truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.